Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am absolutely thrilled today. We are sitting down with a man whose words have travelled the 7 seas and back again. For those who may somehow not know who you are, who are you?
I am Herman Melville. Most folks today know me as the fellow who wrote about a very large, very angry white whale. Though in my own time, I was better known as a man who lived among cannibals.
You've certainly lived a life of adventure. Let's go back to the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born on August 1st, 1819, in the bustling city of New York. A fine place to start a journey, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And what was your given name at birth?
I was born Herman Melville, without the E at the end.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
The E was actually added by my mother, Maria, after my father passed away. It was a bit of a family flourish, perhaps a way to distinguish our branch of the family tree as we navigated some rather stormy financial waters.
What was your hometown like growing up?
New York was a forest of masts and a sea of faces. It was a place of high society and deep commerce, but we also spent time in Albany. It felt like a world of transition, one foot in the old Dutch traditions and the other in the frantic energy of a growing America.
What was your family life like?
It was a bit of a tragedy in 3 acts. We were quite well-to-do early on. My father was a merchant, but then the business failed. He passed away when I was just 12, leaving my mother with 8 children and a mountain of debt. We went from the drawing rooms of Manhattan to struggling for every crust of bread.
That must have been incredibly difficult. What kind of kid were you?
I was considered a bit slow by some of my teachers, believe it or not. I was quiet, observant, and perhaps a bit of a dreamer. While others were mastering their sums, I was looking at the horizon.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
The fear of being ordinary and the fear of poverty. Seeing my father's spirit broken by debt left a mark on me. I feared that I would never find a way to support my family or find a purpose that felt true.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
I didn't dream of being a writer, oddly enough. I thought I might be a gentleman of leisure or a clerk. But the sea was always whispering.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
I enjoyed the debating societies. There is something intoxicating about the power of an argument and the rhythm of speech. It's where I first learned that words could be weapons or anchors.
What was your first job?
I was a bank clerk for a time, and I even tried my hand at teaching in a little schoolhouse. But I was a terrible teacher. I didn't have the patience for it. I eventually worked on my brother's farm, but the land felt too still for me.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It was when I first stood on the deck of a merchant ship, heading for Liverpool. I looked at the vastness of the Atlantic and realized that most people live their whole lives within a few miles of where they were born. I knew then I couldn't be one of them.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Signing on to the whaler Acushnet in 1841. It seemed like just another job, a way to escape my troubles. But that voyage provided the ink for almost everything I would ever write.
What was your biggest break?
The publication of my first book, Typee. People went mad for it. They loved the tales of the South Seas, the beautiful islanders, and the narrow escapes. I was the man who lived among the cannibals almost overnight.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Hunger and uncertainty. When I returned from the sea, I had nothing but my stories. I had to convince people that a common sailor could actually put 2 sentences together.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Many times, especially later in my career when the critics turned harsh. Writing is a lonely business, Calvin, but the stories have a way of demanding to be told, whether the world wants to hear them or not.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
I was a morning worker. I'd sit at my desk at Arrowhead, my farmhouse, and write until the sun was high. I needed the quiet of the Berkshires. And I walked. I would walk for miles, working out the tangles of a plot in the fresh air.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I suspect I would have ended up as a permanent sailor, or perhaps a customs inspector, which is exactly what I did when the writing stopped paying the bills.
What was your life like before fame?
It was a life of salt and rope. I saw the world from the rigging of a ship. It was hard, dangerous work, but it was honest.
How did relationships change after success?
It was wonderful to find a kindred spirit in Nathaniel Hawthorne. We lived near each other for a time, and having someone who understood the weight of a story was a rare gift. But success also brings those who only want to know the famous version of you.
Did fame bring happiness?
It brought a brief summer of prosperity, but it was fleeting. Happiness for me was found in the quiet moments with my wife Elizabeth, and the satisfaction of a well-turned phrase.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The expectation. People wanted me to keep writing the same adventure stories over and over. When I tried to write something deeper, something like Moby-Dick, they didn't know what to make of me. They wanted a sailor. I gave them a philosopher.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
Many thought I was just a teller of tall tales. They didn't realize that under the adventure was a deep, sometimes dark, exploration of the human soul. Also, some folks were convinced I actually was a cannibal. I can assure you, I prefer a good roast beef.
What was your darkest moment?
The loss of my sons, Malcolm and Stanwyck. No success in the world can mend the heart of a father who outlives his children. That is a grief that words cannot reach.
What past regrets did you carry?
I sometimes regretted the toll my obsession with writing took on my family. I was a difficult man to live with when the monsters were in my head.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My father, in his absence and his failure, and Hawthorne, in his brilliance and his friendship.
What was life like in your final years?
I lived a quiet, almost anonymous life in New York City. I worked at the customs house for 20 years. Most of my coworkers had no idea I had ever written a book. I spent my evenings writing poetry just for myself.
When and where did you pass away?
I passed away on September 28, 1891, in my home in New York City.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I once deserted my ship in the Marquesas Islands. I literally ran away into the jungle to escape a harsh captain. That's how I ended up living with the Taipei people.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
That I had gone insane. Because Moby-Dick and Pierre were so different from my early work, some critics actually suggested I had lost my mind. I was just finding it, Calvin.
What was your favorite food?
I had a great fondness for a good New England chowder. There's something about the taste of the sea in a bowl that always felt like home.
Did you have a favorite restaurant?
I preferred the quiet of my own table, but in my youth, any tavern near the docks with a warm hearth and a cold ale was a palace to me.
What was your favorite book?
The Bible and the works of Shakespeare. They are the two great oceans of literature. You can dive in 1,000 times and never hit the bottom.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
I once spent a night in a jail in Tahiti. It was during a bit of a mutiny on one of my ships. We weren't criminals, really, just exhausted sailors who had reached our limit. It's quite a place to find inspiration, I'll tell you that.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Don't chase the wind. Success is a fickle thing. Write what is true to your own heart, even if the world isn't ready for it. A book's true life often begins long after the author's has ended.
Herman, do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
Just this, stay curious about the horizons. The world is much larger than the street you live on. And remember, every man has his own white whale to chase. Make sure the chase is worth the soul. Thank you for having me, Calvin. It's been a grand adventure.
Thank you, Herman. That was truly fascinating. We explored the high seas of his youth, the struggles of his literary career, and his quiet later years in New York. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.